In today's fast-paced world, we are constantly bombarded with distractions, desires, and attachments that pull us in every direction. From the pursuit of material wealth to the need for social validation, it often feels like we're chasing something outside ourselves to find happiness. But what if the path to true freedom doesn't lie in acquiring more, but in letting go of the things that hold us back? This is where Stoic philosophy comes in. Rooted in ancient Greece and Rome, Stoicism teaches us how to master our desires and cultivate inner peace. Stoic philosophers like Epictetus, Seneca, and Marcus Aurelius shared profound insights into the nature of human suffering and the power we hold over our reactions. They believe that by relinquishing attachments to things beyond our control, we can achieve a state of tranquility and true freedom. In this video, we will explore the core Stoic strategies that help us navigate the complex web of desires. By understanding these timeless principles, you'll learn how to free yourself from the things that weigh you down and embrace a more peaceful and purposeful existence. Stay tuned as we uncover the Stoic path to serenity and the tools that can transform the way we approach life's challenges. Desire is an intrinsic part of human nature, but in Stoic philosophy, it is viewed not as a natural force to be indulged, but rather a source of inner conflict and suffering. The Stoics, particularly Epictetus, Seneca, and Marcus Aurelius, placed a strong emphasis on understanding and managing our desires in order to achieve true freedom and peace of mind. Their teachings offer profound insights into how desires, when unchecked, lead us away from tranquility and into a cycle of restlessness. Epictetus, in his discourses, articulates the Stoic view of desires, emphasizing the importance of distinguishing between what is within our control and what is not. He famously said, "Wealth consists not in having great possessions, but in having few wants." This powerful statement encapsulates the essence of Stoic philosophy. It is not the external accumulation of things that leads to contentment, but the cultivation of inner self-control over our desires. For the Stoics, desires are not simply everyday wants or preferences. They are the compulsions and attachments that govern our minds, driving us to seek things we do not need, and often do not truly desire once we obtain them. At its core, Stoic desire is a yearning that goes beyond basic needs. Ordinary human wants, such as a desire for food, water, or shelter, are natural and essential for survival. However, Stoic desire refers to the craving for things outside of our control, such as wealth, status, or the approval of others. These desires create internal dissonance, as they are often impossible to satisfy in a lasting way. While the pursuit of material wealth or power might bring temporary pleasure, the Stoics argue that it also leads to constant fear of loss, anxiety, and dissatisfaction. In the Discourses, Epictetus explains that it is not things themselves that trouble us, but our opinions about them. This highlights that our desires and attachments to these external things shape our experience of them, often leading us into unnecessary suffering. Unchecked desires, according to Stoicism, cause unrest because they tie our sense of well-being to things outside our control. For example, the desire for wealth can lead to a never-ending chase, where the acquisition of more money only increases anxiety and desire for even greater sums. Similarly, the pursuit of power or social approval can lead to an unstable sense of self-worth, constantly dependent on external validation. The Stoic view is clear. The more we attach ourselves to external things, the more we set ourselves up for dissatisfaction, as we cannot control when or how we acquire them, nor can we control how long they last. The futility of attachment is best illustrated through metaphor. Imagine chasing a mirage in the desert. No matter how fast you run toward it, it always remains out of reach. Or picture fishing for shadows, casting your line into water and hoping to catch something that doesn't even exist. These metaphors evoke the elusive nature of desires that are based on external, uncontrollable things. When we pursue these desires, we are, in essence, chasing after illusions that promise fulfillment, but only lead to emptiness. Marcus Aurelius, in his Meditations, expands on this idea with his reflection on external events. He writes, "External events are beyond our control, but the desires we form about those events are within our control." This is a central tenet of Stoic philosophy. While we cannot always control what happens to us, we do have the power to control how we respond to those events. Our desires are a choice. We can choose to let go of attachments and shift our focus away from what is beyond our control, thereby preventing the inner turmoil that arises from futile pursuits. A desire for wealth, for instance, can be reframed within a Stoic mindset. Instead of seeking money for its own sake, we can ask ourselves, what do we truly need? Wealth, in the Stoic view, is not inherently harmful. It is our attachment to it that creates suffering. The Stoics teach that we should desire only what is necessary, and that we should remain indifferent to the rest. This leads to a life of simplicity and self-sufficiency, where we are not bound by the constant need for more, but instead, find contentment in what we have. In this way, the Stoic approach to desire transforms the way we engage with the world. Rather than relentlessly pursuing material wealth, social approval, or status, we shift our focus to cultivating virtues like wisdom, courage, and justice. By doing so, we align ourselves with nature's laws and achieve a greater sense of harmony and peace. The teachings of Seneca further illustrate this Stoic approach to desire. In his letters, he frequently cautions against becoming enslaved by desires, arguing that they lead us to be constantly rushing towards things that do not truly satisfy us. Seneca writes, "It is not the things themselves that disturb us, but our opinions about them." By learning to alter our opinions and detach ourselves from desires, we can free ourselves from the cycle of longing and dissatisfaction that keeps us trapped in a state of conflict. In conclusion, desires are a source of conflict because they often lead us to seek things outside our control, things that are impermanent, fleeting, and ultimately unfulfilling. The Stoics teach that by mastering our desires and shifting our focus away from external attachments, we can free ourselves from the internal turmoil they cause. As Marcus Aurelius reminds us, the power to change our desires and align them with what is truly good lies within us. The Stoic path is not one of suppressing desires entirely, but of recognizing which desires serve our well-being and which ones lead us astray. By doing so, we cultivate the freedom to live a life of peace, contentment, and true self-mastery. In a world where indulgence and material gain are often equated with success and freedom, Stoicism offers a radically different view of what it means to be truly free. For the Stoics, freedom is not found in the pursuit of wealth, pleasure, or comfort. Rather, it is found in the mastery of one's internal state. The key to freedom, according to Stoic philosophy, lies in controlling our impulses, desires, and reactions to external circumstances. It is a freedom that is not dependent on what we acquire or achieve, but on how we respond to the events of life. Marcus Aurelius, one of the most prominent Stoic philosophers, captured this essence of freedom in his Meditations, stating, "Freedom is the only worthy goal in life. It is won by disregarding things that lie beyond our control." This powerful quote reflects the Stoic belief that true freedom is not about pursuing external rewards, but about freeing ourselves from the internal shackles that bind us to those rewards. To be truly free, we must learn to disregard the things that are beyond our control, such as the actions of others, the circumstances of our birth, or the unpredictable flow of life. These are the things that often dominate our desires and reactions, leading us to feel trapped and enslaved by external forces. The Stoics argue that freedom comes when we realize that these forces are beyond our power, and that our only true control lies within, over our thoughts, emotions, and desires. To understand this concept more deeply, imagine the metaphor of chains being loosened. In life, we often find ourselves bound by attachments to people, possessions, and outcomes. These attachments can take many forms: the desire for approval from others, the craving for material wealth, or the hope that things will unfold in a particular way. These desires can feel like chains, restricting our ability to live freely and peacefully. Every time we are disappointed, frustrated, or anxious about something beyond our control, we tighten those chains, reinforcing our sense of imprisonment. However, Stoic wisdom offers a path to freedom by teaching us how to loosen these chains. When we embrace the Stoic mindset, we begin to understand that our attachments are the source of our suffering. The more we cling to things that are not within our control, the more we become enslaved by them. For example, if we attach our happiness to our career success, we are at the mercy of external factors that may change unpredictably. If we rely on the approval of others to feel good about ourselves, we give away our power to those who may never fully satisfy our desires. Stoicism teaches us that true liberation comes when we let go of these attachments and learn to accept life as it comes, without becoming overly invested in outcomes. This process of breaking free from attachments is deeply connected to the practice of self-discipline. The Stoics believe that self-discipline is essential for cultivating true freedom, because it allows us to detach from fleeting desires and cultivate inner strength. Self-discipline involves the ability to regulate our impulses, desires, and reactions, making us less susceptible to external influences. By practicing moderation and restraint, we become less reliant on the temporary pleasures and comforts that often lead us astray. In doing so, we reclaim control over our own minds and emotions, which is the foundation of freedom in Stoic thought. Self-discipline in Stoicism is not about rigid self-denial or asceticism. Instead, it is about recognizing what is truly important and making conscious choices that align with our values and long-term well-being. The Stoic practice of virtue, wisdom, courage, justice, and temperance helps us to focus on what is within our control and to respond to life's challenges with grace and equanimity. By living virtuously, we strengthen our ability to face adversity without being shaken by it, allowing us to maintain our inner peace regardless of external circumstances. For example, when faced with a difficult situation, a Stoic might practice the virtue of temperance by resisting the urge to react impulsively or emotionally. Instead, they would take a step back, examine the situation with reason, and choose a response that aligns with their values. This self-control over one's impulses is the very essence of freedom, because it allows us to act in accordance with our true nature, rather than being driven by fleeting desires or external pressures. The Stoics also recognize that external events like wealth, fame, or the approval of others are often fleeting and unreliable. The pursuit of these things can never bring lasting freedom because they are subject to change and often beyond our control. Instead, Stoicism teaches that true freedom lies in our ability to detach from these external sources of validation and find contentment within ourselves. By focusing on cultivating our inner character and virtues, we become less dependent on the approval or success of others. This detachment does not mean we abandon all desire or ambition. Rather, it means that we no longer let our desires control us or determine our sense of self-worth. In practice, Stoic freedom is about aligning ourselves with nature and accepting the impermanence of life. As we let go of attachments to outcomes, people, and possessions, we create space for greater inner peace and tranquility. The Stoic view of freedom is not a passive resignation to life circumstances, but an active choice to live according to our highest principles, regardless of what the world may throw our way. By mastering our desires and learning to accept life as it unfolds, we find a sense of freedom that is not dependent on external conditions, but on our own capacity for self-mastery. In conclusion, the Stoic view of freedom is radically different from the modern idea of freedom as indulgence or material gain. True freedom, according to Stoicism, is not about pursuing pleasure or success, but about mastering our internal state and learning to detach from desires that lead us into conflict. Through self-discipline, virtue, and the practice of moderation, we can loosen the chains of attachment and achieve a profound sense of liberation. As Marcus Aurelius reminds us, freedom is found in disregarding what lies beyond our control and focusing on what we can truly master, our own minds. One of the most powerful tools Stoicism offers is the ability to control our perceptions of events and situations. According to Stoic philosophy, it is not the events themselves that disturb us, but our judgments and reactions to those events. Epictetus, one of the most influential Stoic philosophers, famously said, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." This insight is central to Stoicism's approach to desires and attachments. Our perceptions shape our experiences, and by changing how we view situations, we can change how we feel and respond to them. This power of perception is crucial when it comes to reframing desires. When faced with a tempting desire, such as the urge to buy something unnecessary or indulge in material consumption, we can shift our perception of the desire to view it not as something we must act on, but as an opportunity for growth. Rather than seeing the pull of consumerism as a personal failure or a weakness, we can reframe it as a challenge to practice discipline and focus. The desire itself becomes neutral, simply a passing thought or feeling, rather than a force that dictates our actions. By doing so, we take away its power and regain control over how we respond. For example, when the urge to purchase a new item strikes, instead of giving in to that temptation, we can pause and ask ourselves, what is truly important here? This moment offers us the chance to exercise self-discipline and redirect our energy towards something more meaningful, whether that be focusing on a personal goal, cultivating a virtue like patience, or simply appreciating what we already have. By reframing the desire as an opportunity for growth, we not only resist the temptation, but also strengthen our ability to control our impulses, ultimately leading to greater inner peace. Central to this process of reframing is the Stoic concept of the dichotomy of control, which teaches us to distinguish between what is within our control and what is not. The dichotomy of control is one of the most fundamental ideas in Stoic philosophy, and it helps individuals detach from desires related to things they cannot control. Epictetus is again instrumental in explaining this concept when he says, "Some things are up to us and some things are not up to us." According to this perspective, our thoughts, actions, and reactions are within our control, while external events, other people's behaviors, and the outcomes of situations are not. This distinction is incredibly important when it comes to our desires. We often experience frustration, anxiety, and dissatisfaction when we seek to control or change things that are beyond our power. For instance, if we desire the approval of others, or to control how others perceive us, we are attaching ourselves to things outside our control, specifically, other people's opinions. The Stoics argue that when we focus on controlling what we can, our own thoughts, actions, and responses, we are liberated from the suffering caused by external events or the behaviors of others. To put this into practice, consider the desire to gain social validation. Many people seek external approval as a source of self-worth, whether it's through likes on social media, praise at work, or recognition from friends and family. This attachment can lead to constant anxiety and disappointment, as it is based on something beyond our control. The Stoic approach would be to recognize that while we cannot control how others perceive us, we can control how we perceive ourselves. Instead of seeking validation from others, we can focus on aligning our actions with our values and being true to ourselves, regardless of external recognition. The dichotomy of control helps us realize that many of our desires stem from a desire to control or change things that are not in our power. By recognizing this, we can shift our attention away from unattainable goals and focus on the things we can influence, our own attitudes, actions, and choices. This shift allows us to detach from desires that are based on external outcomes and to find peace in knowing that our sense of self-worth and happiness should not depend on things beyond our control. Another key Stoic practice that aids in reframing desires is premeditatio malorum, or the visualization of negative outcomes. This practice involves imagining worst-case scenarios and potential losses, not as a way to dwell in negativity, but as a method of reducing attachment to things we fear losing. By mentally preparing ourselves for the possibility of hardship, we can learn to appreciate what we have in the present and reduce the anxiety that comes from clinging to things that are impermanent. For instance, imagine that you are attached to a valuable possession, perhaps a car or an expensive gadget. In practicing premeditatio malorum, you would visualize the possibility of losing this possession, whether through theft, damage, or an accident. You would imagine the feelings of loss and disappointment, and then consciously accept the impermanence of material things. This process helps reduce the emotional attachment to the object by acknowledging that nothing in life is permanent. By doing so, you shift your focus away from the desire to possess or hold on to things and begin to appreciate them for the time you have them. This practice can also extend to relationships, career success, and other external factors. For example, if you fear losing a job or a relationship, visualizing the potential loss can help you accept that these things are beyond your control. When we mentally prepare for these losses, they become less daunting, and we are able to appreciate the present moment without being consumed by fear or desire for what we may one day lose. Through premeditatio malorum, we learn to detach from the outcome and focus on what truly matters: our own inner growth and the cultivation of virtues like resilience, wisdom, and gratitude. By practicing this technique, we can reduce our attachment to things that are outside our control, which in turn lessens our desires for them. This increased appreciation for the present moment allows us to live more fully and peacefully, free from the constant yearning for what might be lost in the future. In conclusion, Stoicism offers powerful strategies for reframing desires and changing the way we perceive and respond to temptation. By focusing on our control over perceptions, practicing the dichotomy of control, and using techniques like premeditatio malorum, we can reduce our attachment to things outside our control and shift our focus toward what truly matters. In doing so, we free ourselves from the constant cycle of desire and dissatisfaction, allowing us to live with greater peace, gratitude, and self-mastery. Through these practices, we can transform our desires from sources of conflict into opportunities for growth, leading to a life of greater freedom and tranquility. Detachment, in Stoic terms, is often misunderstood. It's not about apathy or indifference. It's not a cold, distant attitude toward life or the people around us. Instead, detachment is about maintaining a healthy separation from unnecessary desires, expectations, and attachments to external circumstances. In the Stoic worldview, Detachment is essential for cultivating inner peace and emotional stability. By releasing our grip on things that are beyond our control, we free ourselves from the emotional turmoil that comes with them. It allows us to navigate life's challenges with equanimity, facing both joy and hardship without becoming overly attached to either outcome. A helpful metaphor for Stoic detachment is that of a passenger in a carriage. Imagine you are sitting in a carriage being pulled by horses, representing the unpredictable forces of life, external events, other people's actions, and the ever-changing nature of the world. You, as the passenger, have no control over the direction of the horses. You cannot change where the carriage goes. However, your role is to remain seated, to observe, and to accept that the horses will take you where they will. You don't need to fight them or attempt to control them. Instead, you can focus on your own response, your own journey within the carriage, regardless of where the horses lead you. This metaphor illustrates a crucial aspect of Stoic detachment. It is about surrendering control over things that we cannot change while retaining control over how we choose to respond. Detachment allows us to accept the flow of life as it is, without becoming attached to outcomes or resisting the inevitable changes that occur. It provides a sense of emotional stability because it frees us from the constant push and pull of desires that often cause inner conflict. When we release our attachment to external things, whether it's the outcome of a situation, the approval of others, or material possessions, we create a mental space where we can experience greater peace and emotional resilience. One of the core reasons why detachment is so important in Stoicism is that attachment to outcomes or objects often leads to emotional volatility. Think about a time when you were attached to a particular goal, perhaps a promotion at work, a relationship, or the pursuit of wealth. If you placed your happiness in achieving that goal, your emotions were likely tied to the outcome. If the goal was achieved, you might have felt a temporary sense of joy or satisfaction. However, if the goal was not reached, you might have experienced disappointment, frustration, or even anger. This kind of emotional roller coaster happens because you're allowing external circumstances to dictate your emotional state.